Let's get into our second question now. And it comes from Daniel in Ogden, Utah. And I actually know Ogden pretty well. I've been there a few times north of Salt Lake City. But Daniel says, Colton, I am about to beat my buddy's ass if I see him pull this nice guy bullshit anymore and blow his chances with a girl he likes. I'm in college and this dude just doesn't get it. I've even had him listen to some of your podcast episodes and he agrees with it, but says it just isn't like him to act the way that I do with women. He's my boy, so I want him to succeed, but maybe you could give a better explanation than me why being a beta male is not the way to fulfill your desires. College is almost over and I don't want him to miss out. Thank you for your help. Well, Daniel, let's not throw hands with your buddy. That's never a good idea, but he's falling victim to what, honestly, the majority of men fall victim to. And if you really aren't in that same mentality as him, remember, you are actually in the minority. So congratulations. Rollo Tomasi refers to what your friend is employing as his sexual strategy as, or a nice guy game, basically. But Rollo calls it beta game. And before we really get into it, some people take issue with that term because they confuse the definition of game, because they think, game is something that's highly effective. You've heard someone say, oh, he's got game, as in reference to someone who is good with women. But as I've explained in previous episodes, on this podcast, the way we define game is something that everyone has. It's separate from what's effective and what isn't. Game is just the strategy someone uses to solve their reproductive problem. So the pickup artist has game, just as the incel simp on OnlyFans paying thousands of dollars to some chick he'll never meet has game as well. Everybody has it. It's just, what is your strategy, without any credence given to how effective that is. That's the baseline definition of game. So we're going to start from that operating standpoint. So what is nice guy game or beta game? And most people understand the archetypes of the alpha and the beta as it relates to like the animal kingdom. So the alpha males being the ones that show the genetic traits and behavioral tendencies to put them at the top of the reproductive food chain. The beta male is, well, none of these things really. And so he has to come up with alternate methodologies to facilitate his own reproduction under the harsh conditions of alpha competition. And this is true in the animal kingdom and in humans. So beta males have literally evolved methods which are attempts to steal away potential females from the alpha's harem, or in the case of humans, his perceived potential harem. And for those who don't know what a harem is, it's just a collection of females that are sexually available to the alpha. So in humans, with nice guys, betas like your friend focus on assimilating themselves to be more like the women they want to get with. And this theory basically asserts that the beta is going to be recognized as different or apart from the more common alpha males who the women he wants are naturally inclined to prefer. And this is where you get the whole I'm not like the other guys trope that comes from the beta that wants to evoke that ideal in his partner, right? So since his brain recognizes his inability to compete with the alpha, or as you described yourself, it sounds like maybe that's you, he can't compete with you in the physical sense. So he has to utilize basically psychological tactics which essentially involve convincing his love interest that her ideal parental investment is not going to be with the alpha, but actually with him. And it's usually per her vocalized requirements that women often recite when asked what they want in a guy. So, you hear, I want someone who's kind, loving, loyal, brings me flowers, will listen to me, whatever have you. And he optimizes his compatibility and familiarity with her and the feminine. And remember, this process is constantly being reinforced by the social conventions that are around him every day that he adheres to. So, in a feminine primary society, you're going to be rewarded for upholding that ideal. And somebody who is extra sensitive, extra empathetic, extra emotional, become less so they can become more. These are the types of things you're going to be seemingly rewarded for. And that would make the lucky lady he's after more apt to choose him over the more self-absorbed alpha, right? So some of those traits are good things in certain contexts, but the problem is that idea as it relates to sexual dynamics is not the reality. The fallacy here is that similarity attracts similarity, and it's failing to account for masculine-feminine polarity. And it's a belief set in something that seems so real and within the beta male's grasp thanks to the conventions of feminism and modern society that seem like it would back that methodology. And literally, as I'm talking about this, I'm picturing the scene in Indiana Jones in The Last Crusade when the bad guys kind of tricked into drinking from that shiny, really beautiful cup. He has no knowledge that Jesus was actually a carpenter, and so he should be just choosing the simple wooden cup as the Holy Grail.
I'm not a historian. I have no idea what it looks like. Which one is it?
Let me choose.
That dude has no idea the trap he's walking into, just like your friend. Your friend is the Nazi sympathizer dude who ages in 5 seconds and explodes into dust in Indiana Jones.
He chose poorly.
That's your friend. I'm kidding, obviously, but you get the point. So, feminism convinces us that women shouldn't be attracted to that toxically masculine alpha, tough guy, macho man archetype. They want somebody who's thoughtful, a good listener, equal partner. So the natural inclination is to just amplify this disparity as the beta male. Disqualify the alpha as these archaic misogynists, hell-bent on, they just want sex. They jump from girl to girl, no commitment, and embody these other more feminine traits so as to solve their reproductive problem. And remember, this isn't just a sexual strategy because it seems like the right thing to do according to social conventions. It's also an ego-preserving mechanism. So subscribing to this thought process protects him from facing the reality that he can't compete with the alpha in the physical sense. So it's protecting him on multiple levels. But all of this stems from the need to reproduce under the stress of competition. That's what it all comes back to. And the longer that feminine identity association goes on for your friend, the more ego invested and internalized that strategy becomes. And this is where you get statements like you mentioned where he says things like, I could never be like that. Because at this point, it's literally an ego investment for him, regardless of the lack of results. Even in the light of real, tangible evidence of the contrary, he's going to roll forward with this methodology unless he has an awakening due to trauma or some impactful life event. And remember, in the end, also, women often actively despise nice guy game. And it might be worth explaining to him, if you spent any significant time around women who are somewhat game aware at least, they're going to allude to some experience with a guy who's said and done all the right things, but later they realized he's been this wolf in sheep's clothing who's going to turn sour the second he doesn't get the sexual exchange he wants for being nice. So this is actually an extremely useful trope for women because it absolves her of her responsibility for rejecting the beta guy who she knows she isn't attracted to from the beginning. It doesn't actually have anything to do with his ultimate reveal of frustration when he doesn't get what he wants. The reality is, if she's being honest, he never stood a chance to begin with. That was inconsequential to what the outcome was going to be anyway. And why? Because beta game and nice guy game is inherently unattractive to behavior, to women. That behavior is unattractive to women, excuse me. And in the end, that logic of, well, he's just being nice so he can have sex with me, that's not only disqualifying of the nice guy who may actually have genuinely good intentions. All it does, it actually turns him into cannon fodder for her ego, which in the end is really all he's good for to begin with. Sadly, this is a tragic reality for guys who employ this strategy. You know, she's just gassed up by his intentions to get with her, and he's torn to pieces when he realizes he never had a chance to begin with. All gain for her, all loss for him.